Second series that we want to talk about is your beloved Detroit Pistons and GMAC's beloved New York Knicks. Let's bring GMAC up to the screen. And we'll say hi. How's it going, Andrew?
What's up, fellas? Bryce, I hope we're still friends.
I mean, you know I don't care whether they
I know.
lose. So.
Better for the show if there's a tension between us because of how the game ended and how the series has gone and the bad blood that seems
effing New York elitists with their officiating and the league conspiracy. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just over here with our bad calls and our pull with the league, right? Because we've gotten so much luck throughout the history of this franchise, right? Just one frozen envelope is all we've gotten. I can't. Bryce is like the nicest human on the planet, so it's like really tough to generate any animosity toward you. Like everyone at Knicks Film School loves you, like very much. They love you, and they can't wait for you to come back.
You know what?
And all the slander, Bryce, that went toward the Pistons today was like, man, I hope Bryce is okay. Like it ended all with that, you know?
It's the best thing that happens. The thing I always find the funniest is whenever I like do actually go at somebody, because people may not believe this, but I'm pretty competitive and I will stand up whenever I feel like it's necessary. And there's people's reaction to the first time they see it from me is always kind of funny. I remember somebody told me not to mistake my kindness for weakness. And that was one of the best compliments I ever got. It was somebody that watched me. It actually, the situation wasn't one I'm super proud of. I was acting like a fool as a high school basketball coach, but that was something he said to me is like, you know what? I appreciate that. Cause one, it says that I'm kind, but it also stood out to me that people do think that, like, just cause I'm nice, aw shucks, you know, Midwestern, that I won't like stand up for myself and come at you if I feel like it. It just doesn't happen very often. Like I feel like it surprises people though. Never at you, GMAC. Maybe it's 94 every once in a while. 93. Not really to me.
No, you're still good. Yeah. 94 to 93, the New York Knicks win this basketball game.
It was a fun game, Sam. Like, regardless of everything else, it was a fun game, right?
It was a football game on a basketball court, which was fun. Super physical. I don't totally know where to start, in all honesty.
Can I start somewhere?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to get a few things out, because the one thing that drives me crazy about the officiating thing is everything that's going to get lost on the big networks. And it already happened during the halftime of the Lakers-Wolves halftime show. All they showed was the call and whatever. Cade freaking Cunningham had a 25-point triple-double in this game in his fourth game in the playoffs. Karl-Anthony Towns made 2 insane buckets in this game that brought the Knicks back when Detroit should have won. And Jalen Brunson came back from his tweak or whatever and went crazy to start the fourth quarter. And I want to make sure those things are appreciated and celebrated by both teams, because you're right. It was a football game on a basketball court, but there were individual efforts that were actually incredible in this game. And I don't want that one call to that's why I get pissed and don't want to talk about the officiating, because the actual basketball that was played gets overshadowed.
I'll second that in the sense that if my voice sounds a little hoarse today, folks, it's because we had a watch party in New York City today. All those videos you saw of New York City, I was at one of them, is what I'll respond with. And I didn't get the full experience. Like when you're watching it with people, you don't get the full experience of watching the game, breaking down what's actually happening. And so when I finally got home from Manhattan and I put it on for my wife, we watched the last 3 minutes and change, basically from the time it was 88-84, and the Knicks, like, Tibbs draws up that great ATO, Brunson finds Cat on the opposite side for 3, and from that point on, the shot making down the stretch was incredible. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. with a clutch 3 and a clutch bucket.
Yeah,
like you said, the baseline fadeaway from Cat, matched with Cat hitting a huge 3 after the play breaks down, because it just clearly seemed like OG Anunoby was out of gas. The play was for OG to take the 3 in the corner. and then he just pump faked because he just was out of legs, and it led to Cat taking the logo three. From like the point I put it on to the point you're referencing, the foul that wasn't called at the end was incredible basketball. And it's a shame that that's the first 48 minutes and 59 seconds are not going to be talked about as much. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
So yeah, like to Bryce's point, we'll get to the last minute here, last second at the end. But to Bryce's point, there were three just like genuinely, like truly outstanding performances in this game.
Agreed.
Jalen Brunson like carries the Knicks all the way back with like a monster fourth quarter, like a monster start to the fourth quarter, and was absolutely fantastic, both as a passer and more as a scorer.
Yep.
As a driver, he just took advantage of every opportunity that he had against mismatches or even against Ausar at times. Like Ausar, I don't think has dealt particularly well with Jalen, really, or as well as I thought he was capable of potentially dealing with him in this series.
Ausar minutes are a touchy subject in Detroit right now. So,
in what way?
Half the fan base thinks he's getting screwed out of minutes, and the only way for Detroit to be successful is him on the court, even with how bad his offense is. And the other half of the fan base, like it was so bad, I almost muted the word Ausar on my timeline after the game. Like I legit almost did, because it's polarizing. But anyway,
so I have thoughts on that in a second.
I'm fascinated to get your thoughts. I truly am. I've been waiting all day.
I mean, Towns was a monster in this game too. I mean, the thing that we talked about coming in was they just don't have a way to guard him unless it's Isaiah Stewart.
Who's hurt?
And Isaiah Stewart is hurt. And I think that's almost where I want to start. I think this series would be 3-1 Detroit if Isaiah Stewart was healthy, but it doesn't really matter because he's not, right? Like, I think Isaiah Stewart would do an amazing job of at least mitigating what Karl Towns is doing. In some respect, I'm not saying he'd limit him entirely because Towns is an incredible player, but Isaiah Stewart is like a borderline all defense guy that is like the perfect physical matchup for Towns. And these games have been close enough to where I think that if Stewart was healthy, that really adjusts the series. The other thing that it adjusts is it takes Jalen Duren off the court. And I get it that Jalen has made some loud plays. I thought particularly today, he made some loud positive plays. A couple of really important block shots.
Yeah.
He had a really important lob. The Pistons just really can't get consistent offense with him on the court right now. They were a -17, I think, with him in the game today. Every other starter outside of Tobias Harris was a positive. Paul Reed was a positive in this game. The Pistons tried a few different defensive tactics, I thought, but anytime that Jalen Brunson pulled Duren into a ball screen and they played drop, it just felt like it was dead. Like every single time, it felt like he had no shot to be able to deal with it.
I just want to say, if the Knicks go on to make real noise in the playoffs, Knicks fans should look back at game 2 as the turning point of the playoffs, because sometimes you need that wasn't like a low moment. I don't think losing to the Pistons. Okay, maybe it was. Maybe losing to the Pistons in Madison Square Garden is a low. Not because it's the Pistons,
right?
I know you're not disrespecting the Pistons.
They've been losing in the final minute of the last 3 games of the series, right? Like,
all I'm saying is, Cat was so quote unquote bad, underutilized, whatever you want to say, that it forced everybody, including Tibbs and Cat and the team, to look at themselves and self-scout and say, this is wrong. We have to fix it. And we have to like make a real conscious effort to do so. And it's paid off in spades, GMAC.
It's exactly what I was alluding to all throughout how we were previewing the series ahead of time and after the response to game 2, where the conversation you guys had about the Knicks crunch time offense, Cat taking 3 shots in the second half, none in the fourth quarter. Like, as much as people might want to put that on Cat, maybe he does share some blame for maybe not being as aggressive. This has been their offense the majority of 2025. And it wasn't like a low point in that you lost to the Pistons. it's a low point in that it's on a national scale for everybody to see. Everybody's noticing it. Everybody's like, oh, so why don't you run more Cat Brunson pick and roll? And here we are 2 games later. Cat is dominating fourth quarters, has 8 gigantic points in this stretch tonight. And yeah, you're now looking at a more diverse fourth quarter offense that gives you options. Like it gets lost because it didn't lead to points, but they ran a Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson pick and roll at one point.
Yeah.
That's just like nothing that hasn't happened over the last 3-4 months. It's been Brunson, ISO, and which is like, he's really good at ISO, which is why he was the clutch player of the year. Or they bring Josh Hart into the action because he's being guarded by the center. And it's been their only option. And Cat, you go space the floor, bring this really good wing defender over there, or just any wing defender over there. Go be with Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, and Jalen Brunson will cook. And now there seems to be a more diversified offense that, like I said, has options.
I just want to point out, and I think Cat's overall offensive diet has been good because they have run designed actions to post him up. But I also want to point out, I was screaming at the top of my lungs that Karl-Anthony Towns should not have 5 3-point attempts in the first 2 games of the series. He's now 9 of 15 in games 3 and 4. A lot of them the trail variety, which I love. And Detroit sucks at guarding. And that's why, as somebody like trying to be neutral in it and looking like how should New York attack Pistons defense, they should run Cat. Like Jalen Duren and Paul Reed both did it tonight. Like they closed out short. And I'm just like, but it's an advantage for them. But to your point, you were screaming for the post ups, and we've seen them. They tried to run it again the first play tonight as well. It was going to be a Cat post up. I think Detroit got real physical. I don't remember if it was called a foul or what, but they blew it up a little bit. But they're consciously trying to do that. And to his credit, he's made some ridiculous shots in this series. I mean, the baseline fadeaway was Jalen, like, I don't agree with you, Sam, or sorry, I don't disagree with you, but on that particular possession, Jalen Duren, he did all he could and contested with his left hand even to make it a better contest.
The bigger issue from Duren was on the 30-footer that he made to take the lead. Yeah.
So, I think Cat deserves a lot of flowers, and obviously Jalen Brunson. And I put it in my notes. OG wasn't as good offensively in this one. I wonder if he is getting a little tired. He's been an incredible 2-way player. I think I put in my Substack that he was the best 2-way player in the series so far. I still think that that's probably true just because of what he does on both ends of the floor.
Okay. So I just disagree with that.
Who's the best 2-way player?
Yeah. I mean, I think that 2-way player is the best player in the series, right? Because you're accounting for both ends when you say who the best player in the series has been.
No, I didn't.
I think OG's been the best defender in the series. I would agree with that.
No, okay. So you're taking how I'm saying 2-way player as different then.
Yeah,
than how I mean it.
That's probably true.
I think Cade, Brunson, and Cat have been the 3 best players in the series, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm just saying I think OG's impact as an offensive and defensive player, I guess I can understand why you would, how that comes. Yeah. That's not my intention with 2-way player isn't the best player in the series. So,
and where I want to go next is this. I actually do think Cade has been the best player in the series. I know that the turnovers are a problem, and the turnovers honestly are killing Detroit. That's the biggest problem that they have offensively right now. The turnovers are like they've had, I think, like 3 separate quarters in this series with 10 turnovers, or like 3 halves in this series with 10 turnovers or something like totally insane. The turnovers are a big problem with Cade's game, and they're a big problem for the Pistons. I still think he's been the best player in the series. I still think that his degree of difficulty on a night-to-night basis is so far ahead of what anybody else on the Knicks is dealing with. He is, all due respect to Ausar, the best defender in the series, guarding him and hounding him possession after possession in OG. They are blitzing screens with him like almost every time now. It feels like to me, like they're done just like switching. Like he has to work his ass off, like sprinting down the court to be able to find like any advantage with like a Mikal matchup or anything like that. Otherwise, it's just going to be OG every single time. And he's adjusted off of that too. Like the way that they've started to hit like Duren on the short roll. And then Duren has actually made like okay decisions in this series. Like in the first quarter, he hits Duren hits a dump off to Ausar. There was one, I think in maybe the second quarter or third quarter, where they blitzed them. He hits Duren in the middle, and Duren hits like a wide open kick out to Ausar. And like Ausar just like totally doesn't shoot when he's wide ass open, and like completely blows up the offensive possession, right? Because that's the advantage that you get whenever teams try to take the ball out of his hands. But he's making the right decisions in terms of that. He's also doing a really good job of starting to do different things in differentiated screen attacks, where he's like, okay, I'm going to call for a screen. I'm going to reject the screen now instead, so that now I can't get too placed on the ball against me. I'm going to go ISO instead of going with a screen brought up for me. And if I have to ISO OG, like I'll just do it. Right. The fact that this dude had a triple double tonight is like completely baffling to me. Like he was unbelievable in this game, I thought. And on top of it, he was amazing on defense in this game. Like he had 3 or 4 blocks that like came out of nowhere. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like you have a 7-foot wingspan. And sometimes I forget that. Like you really, really can go up and get these shots. And like, it's no disservice to Jalen Brunson. It's no disservice to Cat. The problem in this series for the Pistons is what people thought coming in. Even if I think Cade is number 1, and it's by like a very exceedingly small amount, right? Where he'd be better than Brunson in this series and better than Towns in this series. The real problem is that they have players 2 through 6. The Knicks have the next 5 best players in this series. And that's even with Josh Hart not playing particularly well. I still think I'm taking Josh Hart over everybody on the Pistons right now.
I don't think Josh Hart's playing that poorly.
I love Josh Hart, and I get very frustrated at Knicks fans who dislike him.
I think he's regained a lot of the flowers that he has lost during the season throughout every big rebound, the
every big rebound
in the last
single one
in the last 30 seconds after Cat hits the 3. Who's there to strip 100%. Cade to force the turnover? The
problem with him is like again, you run into like offensive issues where he will just like completely blow up a possession by not shooting.
So right. Counter the last 2 games, he's 3 of 5 from 3 today. Now, in general, you are 100% correct. I am co-signing the Josh Hart spacing issues, which is why 30 minutes of Josh Hart is always going to be better than 40 minutes of Josh Hart for me, because I'd love to see what this team looks like 5 out. But this wasn't meant as a shot at Josh Hart, to be clear. Like, I think Josh is. Why do you hate Josh Hart, Sam Vecenie? I go back to the Josh Hart of it all. Game 2, when the Knicks were doing the nonsense closing offense that I've seen for a while. As much as I was like, man, this is a lot of Josh Hart, I felt like he was the only one up for the moment, which has been the case for the last 3 years. Ask a Sixers fan, ask a Cavs fan, like about Josh Hart and what he turns into in the playoffs. And then game 3, like every big rebound, every fast break that they need to start, he's their lead person when it comes to transition. And look, I'm sure a coaching conversation will come up when we talk about this series, but I thought Tibbs like tried a bunch of stuff because they just weren't hitting anything. And there was a stretch where they went without Josh Hart on the floor and they couldn't get a rebound, but he was trying to boost the offense. Then there was a stretch he went without a center for like 2 minutes to try and boost the offense, and was no Mitch, no Cat, and Josh Hart's your center, and it worked kind of well, but they weren't hitting anything. So the Josh Hart love affair has returned, because he's part of every positive thing that happens, it seems.
I'm glad you brought up no center lineups, because that's actually where I want to go next. Bryce, are you a little bit surprised that the Pistons have not tried to go small more often? Because there was a run in the second quarter of this game where they went no big. They went with like Ausar as essentially the 5. And that's when they went on their big run to get back in the game. That to me is the answer here.
We actually talked about that on the podcast real quick, and then we'll dive into that. I think also the fact that Deuce hasn't been great makes it a little bit easier to keep Hart on the floor, and the argument of taking him off when Deuce isn't playing great is a little bit easier. And then GMAC, real quick, before the series, I asked you who the Pistons' second leading scorer in the series would be. Do you remember who you told me?
Did I say Malik?
You said Malik.
Yeah. And
you know who it is not? Yeah. It is not Malik Beasley. It is Tobias Harris. Tobias, in fairness, has been decent, but I think it, again, to your point, Sam, about the second guy, it was Malik during the regular season. Now it's Tobias. Some games it's Tim Hardaway Jr. One game it's Schroeder. Like, it's just, and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik were like under 33% from three combined in this game. Yes, we talked about this on the Pistons Pulse, that the idea of, okay, it was kind of in the Ausar conversation of, okay, well, Ausar becomes a little more interesting offensively if he's not on the court with Duren trying to occupy the same space. Harris is guarding Cat anyway, so why do you need a center whenever Duren's just guarding Josh Hart? Even if you want it to be Schroeder on Brunson, which I don't love, but let's say you want to do that. Well, now you can put Ausar on Josh Hart, and he's the best off-ball defender, roamer, rim contester, havoc creator on the team. I think it's a really interesting idea of a like Cade, Schroeder, insert Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then Ausar Harris lineup. And just see, I think they should go to it in the first half on Tuesday and see what happens. Maybe they get a good run out of it. Maybe the Knicks destroy them on the offensive boards. I don't know, but I think it's worth trying, Sam.
Yeah, I think that's the adjustment here. I don't know if JB will do it, but again, to my point on, and this is where I wanted to like switch and talk about Ausar. This is something we've talked about all year, Bryce. Like, the issue is not necessarily Ausar. It's playing him with Duren.
Sure.
Because they occupy the same exact places every single time on the court.
Yep.
And it's too easy to guard them. It's too easy to send help to Cade. It's too easy to try and take the ball out of Cade's hands. And it's too hard to maintain advantages whenever Cade actually makes the right read and finds the right player. So and look, like, again, like, I don't think Ausar has played great in this series. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, Ausar is the answer here. I just kind of said earlier, like, I think he's not been very good in this series, frankly. But I think that the adjustment probably involves him being the player that they kind of lean into a little bit more and actually like being able to weaponize him a bit better.
We talked about the Knicks putting two on the ball, and you mentioned like, hey, you guys talk about like, we'll just bring somebody else into the screen instead of Duren, right? Like, bring Tobias. I was doing a breakdown from game 3, and the Pistons did that. And this is to your point. Tobias comes in, the Knicks put two on the ball. Cade hits Tobias. Guess who is both standing in the dunker spot being defended by Karl-Anthony Towns? Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson. And if you want to see that, you can go visit the Motor City Hoops Substack. If you want to check that out, subscribe, read notes. I had like 7 pages of notes today, only one line on the call at the end of the game because I don't want to spend a bunch of time on that. So you can check that, but they occupy the same. I will say Ausar offensively, Sam, he's 44% from the field. And he doesn't.
He's been not very good.
And he has 6, 8, 11 turn. He's averaging almost 3 turnovers per game in 21 minutes. The offense has been rough. GMAC, I'm interested in your thoughts from the other side. Like, what do you think whenever Ausar, like, you're like, oh man, he's the Brunson stopper. It's great when he steps off the court.
So it's multi-layered. First of all, the Josh Hart conversation we were just alluding to that you don't like, Bryce, that it becomes all about his spacing, all about the things he takes away from your offense.
It's so much more with Ausar.
So it's literally the inverse, but it's the extreme version of what some Knicks fans make you think Josh Hart
is. Yeah.
But so I think the bigger frustration with Knicks fans is that, like, when Josh is on the court with Cat, it's like you could have had the whole point of getting Cat was 5 out, and you don't. And when you go to make a sub, it's not, okay, now we'll play 5 out for a little bit and go deuce for Hart. It's, no, let me bring Mitch in for Cat. And you're basically doing what the Pistons do with their spacing and having 2 non-shooters on the floor. And that's why Ausar, and it's unfair because he's so young, so it's tough to compare him to Josh Hart. But like, the reason the Knicks can get away with it is because Josh Hart is Josh Hart. Ausar is still like doesn't have all the intangibles, the way you can run your offense through him. And if you're asking from a Knicks perspective, I've been the most afraid of the Pistons when he's not on the floor personally.
Interesting.
And so like the stopping of Jalen Brunson, I know the foul baiting in game 2 became a thing. He's gotten his points rather easily. So let me ask you 2 games.
I had no problem with him. Yeah. Today.
This is the big argument is the Pistons defense tanks whenever Ausar's not on the court and the offense isn't that much better. But from a Knicks perspective, you think the Knicks are going to get theirs no matter what. And you're a little bit more nervous of the offense when the spacing isn't clogged up. Is that fair to say?
I come from the school of Mitchell Robinson as well, where I respect what Jalen Duren can do on the glass. And I think he has been a monster on the boards at times. I'm afraid the most of the Pistons when it's Duren and four shooters, because then you're actually guarding 5 guys. All 5 of them command gravity. The reason they're able to guard Cade the way they are with help and with blitzing is because you can ignore one of their guys. We talked about this before the series. They did this 2 years ago to Isaac Okoro against the Cavs. They just ignored him, and JB Bickerstaff again took him off the floor. And at the time, like their best option to guard Jalen Brunson wasn't there. And you had Cedi Osman, you had Karis LeVert. Like he just pivoted away from a young player that wasn't able to contribute at the moment. And in this series, I think you're seeing a lot of the same thing. I think Ausar's playing a little bit better than Okoro did that series. He's also playing more than Okoro did that series. But I know a lot of Knicks fans speak to this. If the plan is like put Schroeder out there, who I don't know how you feel about his defense on Brunson. I actually think he's guarded him somewhat well in the full court.
He's just too small. He's just too small. Like that's the difference is if the floor is space, Brunson's going to get to a spot against both of them. Ausar has a better chance to contest a shot than Schroeder does. But like, I don't think Schroeder's been bad. I also want to point out Ausar's essentially playing the same minutes per game in this series that he played in the regular season. And I don't know if it's because of the blood clot and, his late start to things, but Ausar played 22.5 minutes a game in the regular season, and through 4 games of the series, he's playing 21. And so that's another point I made on the Pulse today was it's not like he went from 30 to 20. He went from 22.5 to 21. And so I don't think it's that crazy.
The guys that have scared me or bothered me the most when they're in the game for the Pistons, it's obviously Cade, it's Duren, especially when Cat's in foul trouble, which today was the majority of the second half. And then it's Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, and
Beasley or Schroeder.
Honestly, it's Schroeder, because Beasley, like he got hot today, but he hasn't made a shot in a week. He made shots in game 1, and then his impact and his gravity, of course, command, especially since he hit everything during the regular season against the Knicks. But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's those other 5, and then you get Ausar Thompson. It's like, okay, we can guard 5-on-4 at the moment, and we can it's a different way to guard the other team, which I think is advantage Knicks.
So isn't the theory here kind of what Bryce and I are saying, though? So if they have 4 shooters on the court with Ausar instead of Duren, isn't that kind of the adjustment here that would be fun?
Would they use him in the dunker the same way? Like,
yes.
So is the trade-off with Duren and his rebounding to what you would get with Ausar as a center worth it? It would be my question.
The defensive end.
I mean, either way.
I think they could manage because Tobias and Cade are such good defensive rebounders. If Mitch was not against Mitch, but Mitch is dominating all of them on the offensive boards, and I feel like Tibbs kind of went away from him. I think they would be okay on the boards. I think Ausar running pick and roll with Cade with 3 floor spacers would be interesting, because who is Cat guarding in that lineup? Tobias?
Probably Tobias, yeah.
So now you bring interesting guys into the ball screen action. It's like Josh Hart trying to guard ball screen, defending Ausar. They're probably going to put 2 on it, but now Asar's catching it, playing 4-on-3 with 3 floor spacers. Like, it's interesting, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting.
Yeah. That's what I think too. Like that's the adjustment for me is, and look, again, to be clear, like we saw it today and it worked. Like it's not like I'm just like making this up. It's like, no, we literally saw like the proof of concept today, and maybe the Knicks like saw it today and will adjust back in some way and change it and stop it from working as well by going Mitch in those moments, right? By just hammering them on the offensive glass and not being able to allow them to get stops, right? So because I think that's like a real option here too.
Because Ausar can't shoot, the Knicks could counter and go too big. Like they could go cat Mitch Rob in that, right? And put Mitch on Ausar and just say, all right, we're going to get every offensive rebound and Mitch is going to go stand in the lane and protect. So it would be fun. I would like to. And I also want to point out, you mentioned it quickly, not having Isaiah Stewart is why some of these things have to happen also, because God bless Paul Reed and his fun minutes whenever he gets them. You don't have your true backup center with Stu, who's a good matchup, I would think. In this
last thing I'll say about backup centers, you mentioned potentially going to Mitch as an option. Mitch is battling some type of stomach bug. I know there's like a stomach bug going around.
Oh yeah, I saw that
playoffs right now.
Yeah.
So he's been like a step slow. It's felt this series. He only played 9 minutes today. I think there is a fear of a hack-a-Mitch because I know you saw all 4 of his free throws barely make it to the rim. And I think that's why Tibbs decided to go to the no center lineup. It's like, listen, you're here to get offensive rebounds and putbacks. You don't have the energy to put it back. And then if they send you to the line, you're not getting it to the rim and you're not being much of a rim protector at the moment either. So I'm going to try what Anunoby at the 5, which actually thought was pretty effective process. It just didn't, like, shots weren't falling. But yeah, like if you get a healthy and clean bill of health Mitchell Robinson, that's the impactful version that we've seen in the past, then yeah, it's an option.
Final quick thing here: foul or no foul on Josh Hart?
Foul.
Bryce.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So we got a turn. My turn.
Very clearly a foul to me. Like, look. The question to me is not like foul or no foul. Honestly, it was probably bad podcast hosting on my part. It's like, should you call that foul in that moment? I actually
think texting about this today. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I actually think yes, that it was egregious enough to call. Personally,
yeah. I mean, me and GMAC have been talking about it. I don't like. I'm not gonna like flow my arms and make a big ado about it. And I think GMAC threw something at me and I tried to throw something back at him just out of like conversation, where GMAC was like, hey, hasn't this series been reffed super physical? I was like, yeah, that's true. But also, how many fouls at the 3-point line have been called and in this series, even though it's been physical everywhere else? And so I think there's some back and forth. So yeah, I think it was a foul. I think it probably should have been called. Yeah.
So I'm going to sound like an absolute homer here. Just a fair warning.
I love it.
I'm going to sound like a homer here. So 2 things. Okay. Start of the second half, the Knicks just couldn't hit anything. They were 5 of 17 from 3 in the first half. They're even worse on 2-point shots, it felt like. And it seemed like a very clear game plan or missive from Tibbs was like, get out in transition, get to the rim, get downhill. They were calling nothing. Now, it's not even that they weren't calling anything for the Knicks, because you go back the other end, they were calling nothing. I was terrified the entire third quarter before Brunson got hurt that he was going to pick up his 4th foul, that Cat was going to pick up his 5th foul, because they play defense with their hands, right? So I'm waiting for it to happen. They were letting them play, and you're like all the Cade blocks. Every time the Knicks went downhill to the rim, it was an auto block, whether it was Anunoby, whether it was Brunson, whether it was Cat, whether it was Bridges, all of them getting downhill. And it's like, okay, you're not scoring at the moment. And it felt like the officials were letting the physicality take over. And that carried throughout the rest of the game to where when the Josh Hart play happens, when the Tim Hardaway Jr. shot goes up, in this game, that's a no call. That's my only counter. It's a foul. It's absolutely a foul. There were plenty of fouls not called by the textbook definition of the rule, right? I thought they were letting them play, and it's a consistent way they were calling the second half. I recognize I'm wearing Knicks blue at the moment. I completely get it. I felt, as objectively as I possibly could be, that it was consistent with how they were calling it, which is all I could ask for. And then I have a second point, but I'll let you guys respond to this.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah, look, I think that particularly on 3-pointers, they have not really let a whole lot go. Like it's been on like the drives and the physicality on like around the basket and things like that. Like it feels like to me that on threes, they actually have not let a whole lot
in the series. Yes. In this game though. I
don't know. Brunson got, I guess Brunson only
shot 2 free throws today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah. In the series, you're probably right. In the series in general, you're probably right. And not today.
I just thought in the second half, the intention was like, hey, we tried. They took 21 threes. Oh, no, not 21. It was close to 23s in the first half. And I was like, this is a new Knicks team. They're on pace for 43s right now. And then they went and tried to play to the physicality to try to get to the line, and just didn't work. And I thought, okay, you're going to have to discover shot making again, or this is going to be 2-2. And that's the only counter I have to that's a no call based off of how you've called it the first. Yeah. Again, Jalen Brunson, the foul baiter that's so egregious to the league that nobody wants to watch him, shot 2 free throws, had 15 points in the fourth quarter today without taking one of them. So clearly the refs were not being deceived by his dark arts, right? The other thing,
talk about the ridiculous foul in the second quarter that I said.
Yes, it was a foul. That is
he just so we actually have the star ran into him.
We have a term. First of all, that's the Chris Paul. By the way, that is a legendary Chris Paul play. But we have the illegal screens that he gets people called for, the charges. We call it getting Brunsoned, where you bring Jalen Brunson into the screen and then the contact forces him backwards. It's what happens. He's small. You can't do that to a small guard. Anyway, the second thing, in real time, it's you view it one way, right? The play at the end of the game with the second left. When you get a couple looks at it, that's only when I was able to say, you know what, Josh is in his landing area. There's body. He's clearly affecting the shot. That's probably a foul. So we got a chance to look at it. What? I thought
he hit the shoulder pretty clearly on the first go.
Oh, so I didn't. And I think a lot of people in the New York area code didn't either.
I'll be honest, I didn't think it was a foul live. And then after seeing the replay from the baseline, I thought now, in fairness, once I got the view from where the ref was standing, I thought it was a foul. Whenever I got the view from my living room, I didn't. But anyway,
with the ref,
go ahead.
The ref has a lot of pressure to make a call that will decide a game in a series there. The point I'm trying to make is we both all took a second look at it, which is probably why you shouldn't blow your challenge in the first quarter of a game.
No, he couldn't have challenged it anyway, though.
Yeah, it's not challengeable anyway.
He couldn't have challenged it anyway.
Why? That's true, because it's a no call.
Yeah,
it's a no call. Right. Yeah. So, but get out of here, GMAC.
For what it's worth, Pistons fans are crushing JB for that in general, though. For using
terrible challenge. It's an insane challenge. Made no sense whatsoever. It was so
Can
stupid.
I end with a story? Can I end with a quick story? A very quick story, and then you go back to talking about the much more entertaining games, probably. So, as you can probably tell from my year so far at Game Theory, I played baseball the majority of my life. From the time I was 7 to I was 17. My dad, who spent a lot of time, at all these baseball fields growing up, made some friends with some umpires and decided to make some extra cash on the weekend being an umpire. When I graduated high school and playing any type of amateur, like college or pro, was not out of the question. I wanted to stay around the game. And so I said, Dad, can I take an umpire class? Maybe I'll let that be my summer job. So I went to orientation when I was 17. And day one of orientation, the head of the umpire union here on Long Island says, gentlemen, let's start here with a icebreaker question. Can someone give me the definition of a strike zone? And I played baseball my whole life, as I just said, and I'm like, okay, let me answer. Why not? I'll be forward. I raise my hand and I go, so from just below the chest to right above the knees and the width of the plate. And the guy goes, young Claudio, that's a good definition, but it's 100% wrong. Sit down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to be enlightened to the secret of umpiring. That is why I've probably disagreed with calls in the past. He goes, gentlemen, Learn this and learn it good. The definition of the strike zone is whatever the umpire says it is. And that has crystallized and informed how I view referee calls and missed calls the rest of my life. That was 20 years ago. It was a foul if they called it a foul. It's just like the agreement we've entered into with judgment calls in all sports, umpiring, refereeing, like you name it. Like that, this is what we have established when you allow judgment calls. So that's just, I understand. I believe it was a foul, but he didn't call it. So technically it's not.
We got to get you out of here. We don't boot you.